Hi guys, and welcome back to the Fill Your Boots podcast. Today I'm joined by Chloe Pickford. She's an IFBB Pro wellness competitor and coach. It is lovely to have you on the show. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Julie. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. We've already had a good chat really before the podcast, and she started talking about all the things I was going to ask. So I was like, wait, let's just hit record and go. Yeah, so do you want to introduce yourself and obviously give people a brief overview of what the wellness category is? I appreciate there's some people listening that are probably like not sure about it. So
Of course, yeah. So I am a wellness competitor. I just got my pro card last year at the Arnold's, and
congratulations, by the
also,
way.
oh, thank you, Millie. And I'm also an online coach. So I coach girls, well, men and women actually. But a lot of my clients are aspiring wellness girls, so that is the kind of direction that I am moving in. With
Awesome.
the wellness category, if any of you have like looked at categories before, the wellness class is basically the class up from bikini, and the look that the wellness girls need to obtain is basically a dominant lower body. Okay, so girls with big legs, big glutes, not too muscular on the upper body, so not like a figure athlete where they are quite muscular. But it's basically girls who have got really wham big lower bodies. Don't fit into bikinis, they're too big, and they don't have a big enough upper body for figure, basically.
That is you. For those of you that haven't seen what Chloe looks like, she's got wham legs.
I tried.
You do a very good job of it. Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. I know a lot of girls that are in that sort of boat actually, where they'll try and do bikini and then get told that they've got too much muscle on their legs, and then where do they sit? And that's gladly why they've introduced that wellness category because it's quite new, isn't it?
Yeah, it's new, especially in the UK as well. When
Mm,
it came out, because I was a figure athlete before it came out, and I was like, oh, I really, really want to do it. Um,
yeah,
and so that's kind of the direction I went into when it was kind of quite popular in the UK.
yeah. What's the difference between wellness and figure? Figure girls have bigger upper bodies,
Yeah,
right?
so figure girls, you want more of a balanced physique. So you want um, an upper body that is matching the legs. So you don't want to have, either too much bigger upper body compared to the legs, vice versa. Um, Bigger girls, if you compare a wellness girl to figure girl, you will see a big difference, first of all, in their size, but also the conditioning when they come to stage. So figure girls are really, really peeled. Whereas when you jump on stage as a wellness girl, trust me, you are really peeled, but they don't want to see the feathering through the glutes, the really, really cut quads, you still need that fullness in your lower. It's actually a really hard look to kind of get right because you need to be lean,
Mm,
but you can't be bigger lean, So it's actually a really, really hard task, I think, to strike
I
it
can
right.
imagine. Yeah, that must be really difficult.
Yeah, it is, especially when you come stepping on stage and trying to like keep that fullness, but also be lean enough,
Yeah.
and have no fat on your glutes, but then not be able to have like any feathering. It's really, really hard.
Yeah, God, I don't even know how you try and do that. So tough.
Yeah.
So, I'd really like to start off with how you found yourself in the bodybuilding world. Obviously, it's to some people that don't know much about it, it seems like a very rogue route to go down when I think about it as well. Like, obviously, I competed, but not on the same level as you. But like, when I did it, it's still really weird when you think about it. Like painting yourself mahogany, putting on a sparkly bikini, and going and flaunting your stuff on stage. So how did you end up doing that?
So I have always been in competitive sports, always
Mm,
done sports since a young age. And, I was, competing in horse riding as well, quite seriously, athletics as well. So I've just always had that like competitive streak in me, and I've always just been into that kind of side. I went to university, and that's when I kind of started weight training with the hockey team. We
mm,
started doing strength conditioning sessions, and I was actually really strong. So my love for weight training was kind of like came about at university, and then I left uni, and then I was like, what do I want to do? So I started becoming a PT. So I did my PT qualification, and then started my own business. And when I was PTing at a studio, one of the guys there was, still competes now actually to this day. He said to me, Chloe, like, I think you'd be really good at bodybuilding. I was like,
mm.
no, like, I'm not going on stage and like, what is it? Like, I don't even have any idea. So he said, look, you've got the genetics, I can see it. Like, you've got the muscle, like, you train really well. So he literally took me to meet his coach, and the rest is actually history. You know, the next thing I, you know, met this coach in March 2016. Hadn't really properly weight trained, hadn't been doing a proper split, and then I was actually on stage in September. So I had
Wow.
such a short period of actually properly training, and I transformed my physique in such a short space of time. Did really well in my first year, and that's kind of when the fire was really lit, and I was like, I actually quite like this. This suits me because
Yeah.
I quite like pushing myself to dark places. I get a kick out of it. I just love challenging myself. Like that's just, I don't know, I love that side of it. But I also love training. You know, for me, training, I just really enjoy lifting weights. So competing is like a byproduct of me loving training.
Yeah.
So yeah.
An interesting tangent to go off on there, but I'm thinking, for me personally, when I did a prep, obviously you're so depleted, you feel awful, don't you? That dark place that you're in, that you're talking about. Do you find that your love for training kind of changes ever so slightly when you do prep? Because inevitably, like, you'll lose strength towards the end. Things will start to feel a lot harder than they were at the beginning. Did you find that that ever has an effect on how much you love training?
Yes and no. Like obviously seeing your strength go down is like demoralizing, but then training and seeing like veins popping out and getting leaner,
Mm.
pretty cool. So for me, I kind of just accept that strength's going to go, but I'm looking sick in the gym, like I'm looking shredded, you know. And it's not everyone's, you know, cup of tea, veins popping out. It's not really my cup of tea, but it's cool. Do you know what I mean? Like it is a cool look. You're like, oh my god, I didn't realize I had veins like in my
Yeah.
stomach, like literally like spider webs. It's so weird. So I think like initially it can be quite a difficult thing to swallow, but at the same time, like it's cool
Yeah.
to be in the deep dark sides of prep and looking really, really
And that's what
lean.
makes you so good at it, because you do love that. Whereas I hated it. So can't relate.
This switch that I'm just relentless. Like it doesn't really
Mm.
phase me and bother me, and that's kind of where, you know, if someone goes through a prep, they need to love that side of it as well. Because if you don't
Yeah,
love
I
that
agree.
side and you struggle with it, you're not going to enjoy the whole process. And it's hard. Like it is hard. And I always say it on my
Mm.
Instagram, it's hard. Like, people come and calls with me, and they're like, I want to compete, and I say, right, are you made like are you made for this? I'm going to tell you exactly what prep and how it will make you feel.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, I say to people, I'm honest, I'm like, I don't think you have the mentality to prep. Is your relationship with food good? If it's not, then you should not prep.
Yeah.
If your relationship with body is not very good, body image, you should not prep. So
Yeah.
I really care about people, and that's always like health and mental health for me.
Mm.
Like physical and mental health is so important for the coach.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I really appreciate that side of you, that, you know, that's something that you hugely value as a coach. You were saying that before we jumped on this podcast, actually. But people aren't always like that in the bodybuilding world. And there's a lot of coaches that aren't like that at all. And I honestly respect it so much, because it's really tough going into a prep and coming out of a prep. So you have to have that sort of strong foundation. Otherwise, you will literally just fall apart.
Yeah, I've seen it happen so many times. Girls starting, you know, prep already got a binge eating disorder or anorexia, you know, or have had eating disorders before,
Mm.
and they don't have the support from the coach, and the coach doesn't actually understand it, doesn't understand people health, doesn't really care. They just want trophies, and it's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
You know, you've got girls that are winning shows, but after that show, they are in an absolute shit state. Sorry to swear on a podcast, but
No, that's fine. Yeah, it's so true.
yeah, it's important to address all of that.
How do you find it personally coming out of a show? Are you in an accepting headspace of gaining body fat, eating more food?
You know what? This last reverse, so coming off stage, my whole prep last year and my whole reverse, honestly, like I'm not going to say it's perfect and it was amazing. It was like really easy, but obviously it had its challenges. But honestly, I've never experienced such an amazing post show.
Mm.
No guilt around food, no cares about body weight going up. Like I'm 15 kilos up from stage weight. Don't care. I literally don't care. I actually prefer being like this than being absolutely shredded to the bone,
Mm.
because I understand that it's not good for me, and I actually feel sexier like this.
Mm.
You know, it's cool to be lean, but losing. I mean, I didn't lose my cycle last prep, but in previous preps I have. That's not cool. That's not
No.
healthy, you know.
Yeah.
And it's not like, it's just not an obtainable look. So in previous years, then, like my first year, when I finished my prep, you could probably say that my coach wasn't the best coach. Left me post show. I gained 10 kilos in a week. Felt like
Wow.
absolute, I felt awful. Couldn't train, wouldn't go to the gym. Awful relationship with food. Then what did I do again? I went straight into prep in 2017, then straight into prep in 2018, ends in 2018. Yeah, great. British champion trophies, but I had an awful relationship with food. I was chewing my food, spitting it in the bin, all of this stuff. And like I'd already, my eating habits started to creep in when I first started to compete, but no one noticed it. I didn't have a clue, like it, you know, I did a bad thing. And it got worse and worse and worse. End of 2018, an absolute shit show. And that's why I stepped away from bodybuilding for like, what, 3.5 years? Because I lost, like, I was burnt out mentally and physically, 3 years back to back. Mentally tapped out, physically tapped out. And I was like, I'm not doing the sport anymore, I'm giving it up.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of like my whole experience. But now my relationship with food, like I said, I don't know what guilt is around food. I have no idea how it feels because I just care. Like I just feel so relaxed, and
Yeah.
it's the best shape I've been in off season. I go for off-plan meals every week. I don't track I don't always follow a meal plan. I track my food. I sometimes eat intuitively as well. I know some people who look down on me for being a pro. I'm not ticking those boxes, but it's just how I am, and I'm authentically Chloe. And if I'm authentically Chloe and I'm happy, then I'm going to be the best athlete.
Exactly. And honestly, I think it's like it takes a lot to find yourself in that mindset where you really genuinely have that complete freedom with food. And I think you can only really get there once you've been through all that shit that you've been through. And now that makes you a really, really good coach for people to have who are in that space, because you can 100% relate to it all.
Yeah, it's just so important, you know, like I want everyone, like, to, you know, anyone who comes to me on a consult form, they've been binging post show or whatever, I just say to them, I really want you to like trust food again and like find that like self-confidence and self-love again when you aren't so lean. And I think stepping away from dieting and stage is the best thing anyone can do. Like it's absolutely changed the game for me, like honestly. It was amazing. So
yeah, because you hear a lot of people, don't you, who come into their quote unquote off season bodies and they hate it. It's like a temporary until they can get back to their leanness again, and it's just not a healthy mindset to be in, is it?
So you see on Instagram, like, and I'll notice behaviors on Instagram now and like red light kind of things, and I'm like, oh, warning signs. That person keeps saying, oh, they're really fluffy. Oh, I'm fluffy, but can't wait to get lean again. And it's like, embrace that. Like, you're fluffy, like you're healthier, you're probably stronger in the gym, you're probably living a better, more balanced life. Like, well, if you can live a really relaxed off season in terms of like, when I say relaxed, I don't mean eating whatever you want when you want, but if you can just have a good relationship with food and enjoy training, you go into prep not burnt out, and prep will be so easy for you. You won't have cravings in prep. I didn't even look at any food porn in prep. I was never on Instagram looking. It didn't faze me because I'd had 3 years of like going out for food, going on holiday, tracking my food. I was like, cool, I'm actually ready for a meal plan now because I've like, you know, I'm fine with it. So yeah.
I personally really like an off-season body as well. Like when people call themselves quote unquote fluffy, I think that's a better look. Like it's more, in my opinion, obviously this is hugely my opinion, but like I think it's more feminine looking. I like looking like that personally. Obviously I have huge respect for anyone who puts themselves through a prep to get lean, and that's such a big achievement to be able to stand up on stage looking like that. But I like that sort of quote unquote off-season look probably a little bit more.
Yeah, so I think I lost you there a little bit, really. I think you paused
sorry.
a tiny bit.
Sorry. I was basically just saying that I like an off-season body. I like having glutes and boobs. Those two things completely disintegrated when I did a prep.
Yeah. It's just a nicer look, I think, you know.
Yeah.
And like off seasons you don't need to gain like, you know, like kilos and kilos and get really really get to the point where you're really uncomfortable. But, you know, typically you will see girls 15, 20 kilos up from stage weight, because that's healthy.
Exactly. So this kind of brings me on to the next bit, actually. I know that we all have really big learning curves throughout our journeys. I know I certainly have made plenty of mistakes over the years. What would you say have been the biggest lessons for you?
I actually wrote this down on my phone. I've got wrote some notes down. I think there's two things I've just mentioned, but I mentioned one of them. Just consistently dieting, consistently prepping. You know, that for me, doing it for 3 years, I would never do that again, just
Yeah.
because it's a lot on my mind and my body. So that was definitely a huge learning curve, and like how it left me so burnt out and hating the sport, and
Yeah.
like just feeling really lost. Didn't know who I really was anymore, because I was just, all I knew myself was this girl that preps. You know what I mean? I missed out on so many holidays. So that's that side, and then I think secondly, choosing like the right coach for you. I have worked with, how many coaches do I work with now? 4 coaches since I've been competing. I would say throughout the 4, fantastic, but my first coach just didn't give me the correct guidance post show, didn't make me aware of like how I might feel, like, you know what I mean? I was just felt a bit lost. So I think for me, I've learned, you know, make sure you choose a coach that understands a lot about female health and actually really, really, really cares about it.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. Is that it can be a very dangerous place to leave someone post show if they don't have the right support
Yeah,
around them.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Interesting. So, genuine question. Obviously, you've been adamant all the way along the way that you're going to get your IFBB Pro card. That's insane, by the way, like incredibly massive achievement. Did you ever question whether it's worth it? Or maybe like thought about giving up at any point?
Yeah, so to be honest, I actually only decided I wanted to get my pro card. I think it was like, where are we now? 2021.
Okay.
That I'd like, my coach had just put the feelers out there, and I was like, I don't really know. And I said to him, like, I said to myself, actually, even if I get my pro card, I probably won't ever compete as a pro, just because it's just a massive jump from amateur to pro. And I was just like, I'm not really sure, like I want to live that life. I'm not really sure, but that has changed since I got my pro card. I have, like, you know, there have been points recently where I'm like, God, I have so much growing to do. You know, I'm not at that level yet, because the jump from amateur to the pro league is so huge. And I thought, am I good enough? And I've had self-doubt, but I think I love a challenge, and I think I now know my potential. I do need to make improvements, but I've realised my potential, and you know, that's kind of my goal now, is to be in the pro league and one day be on the Olympic stage. Big bold statement, but that's my goal now.
No, we're manifesting it. That's what we're doing. So, what is it like being pro? Like, what's the difference between, you know, pro competitor, pro competition compared to an amateur one?
So I haven't actually obviously competed as a pro yet, but first of all, the level of athletes is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, you're competing with people all over the world. So most of the pro shows are all overseas, so America and Europe, you know. So you've got that element of all traveling involved, and just the, you know, the standard of athlete is so much higher.
Yeah.
And I guess the whole thing as well, I mean, I haven't competed, like I said, but it's more serious. You know, a lot of the shows in the UK can be fun, like for example the PCA, fantastic federation, and it's just like good fun, isn't it, for the athletes and stuff. But even like if you step on a tube row stage, you know, you think, oh, this feels like, when I first stepped to the tube row stage in September for my regional, I was like, oh, this feels a bit more serious than what I'm used to.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess, you know, the jump into compete as a pro, it's going to be, you know, big stages, loads of people watching, more expensive to compete for sure.
Oh God, yeah.
And just like a high level of athlete, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, being a pro, it's cool. It does feel like I've got my pro card just up there next to me, and I'm like looking at it sometimes, and I'm like, hello. That actually happened.
Yeah.
It does feel cool. But you sometimes feel quite a lot of pressure. Like I have felt quite a lot of pressure from social media as well, you know. When you next step on stage, like you're gonna win. I'm like, no, 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 please, like just leave me to it. Like, you know, support me and everything, but don't be expecting these big, big things from me. And I'm not gonna rush it either. But you also get this sense of like sometimes you're like, oh, I'm a pro now. Should I be doing this? Should I not be doing that? You know, like going out to a festival or going out with your friends and stuff. And I'm actually like, no, just because I'm a pro and it's not going to change anything in my life, I'm still going to be Chloe. I'm not going to suddenly switch and change into a different person. So yeah, obviously you've got to step up a little bit. You know, it's a whole new level of competition. But yeah, I guess I have to start pressure sometimes.
I have two questions off the back of that, I think. One of them is, I don't know if we can talk about this, but drugs, does that happen a lot more in the pro league?
Yeah, so this is a huge, huge topic, and a topic that a lot of like females don't like to talk about, and they're not even like knowledge, you know, they don't have much knowledge around, and there's a lot of reckless use in sport, even on the amateur, you know, shows. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like the consultation calls I've had recently, and the girls tell me what they've been taking. I'm like, okay,
really.
Let's just go back to what you just said.
Yeah.
But yeah, like when you step into the pro league, like I'm not going to be able to step on that stage, you know, and think to myself, okay, all these girls are natural. They're not going to be natural. None of them are going to be natural. I'll be very, very surprised. So that is the side of the sport that I'm an athlete. I'm really like I take very, very seriously. I'm not a natural athlete. I am assisted, but my usage within the PED realm is very minimal. You know, I haven't used stuff in off seasons. You've only introduced stuff like back ends of prep, and that's why all my feedback has been you're feminine, you're fresh, you know. And I don't think you know, that kind of side to it does scare me. It really, really does, and that's why I take it really seriously. And I'm not reckless. I focus on my training and getting my food in before that even comes into my mind. So yeah, there is more usage of that in the sport, unfortunately, which is sad sometimes to see what girls end up looking like, you know.
Oh god, yeah. I have my opinions on, you know, PEDs and that sort of thing. I'm fine with it if one, you're honest about it, which you are, which I love. And number two, like at that level, I appreciate you have no choice if you're going to compete at that level. Like every single person is doing it. What I personally don't like is just like your average Joe in the gym on steroids for like no apparent reason other than to like look good on a night out. Then that's kind of like, oh, are you sure? Like I've never taken it, but I've never taken anything, but I fully appreciate why, you know, someone in your position would, and I appreciate the honesty, to be honest, because a lot of people aren't honest at all.
Yeah, I think as females as well, you get that like the fear of being judged, and I think some people look at me and they go, "Oh, her physique's like that because she's not natural," and
you don't appreciate the work that you've put in.
Yeah, like I obviously it has helped me in my prep. Like I said, I've never used it in off seasons. You know, my whole 3.5 years away from bodybuilding was food and training. You know, most of my prep up until the last week of my regional, so my peak week, apart from using fat burning substances and thyroid medication to keep my thyroid in check, there was no assistance in terms of like anabolic usage in there up until those points. And when we did add it in, it was very, very minimal. I actually started my prep and Callum, I don't want to touch anything. Like I don't want to go near anything. That's not what I do. And I kind of got to the point where I was losing a lot of muscle, because when you diet to those extremes, I was losing muscle. I was looking so we were filling me up with carbs, and I was just getting flatter. And I was like, oh my god, what's happening to my physique? And it was a conversation I had to have with him, and it kind of did make me feel a bit funny, but I kind of knew that it was needed if I wanted to win my pro card. But again, like, you know, I'm not thinking now, oh my god, when am I next doing something? You know, now I'm thinking, right, no, I'm focusing on my training and my food.
You know,
absolutely. Compared to most people that have competed, I have used very, very little.
Mm.
And I like that about myself. It's kept me fresh, you know, but again, people will say, oh, she looks like that because she's taken whatever. And they'll really
Mm.
judge me. They can do what they, you know, people can say what they want. But I guess that's just the world of social media, isn't it?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, only you will know how much work you've in on top of that. Like, being assisted can only do so much. It can. The rest of it comes down to what
Of
you do.
course. Yeah, there's girls, bikini girls that are doing ridiculous cycles. They don't even, they're
Mm.
nowhere near as big as me. They don't
Yeah.
even look, some of them don't even look massively impressive, which is the sad thing. They're on assistants and they still don't look, you know, they're not winning pro cards. They're not going
Mm.
into pro league and smashing it. And that's kind of like, well, what's the point? Like, if
Yeah.
it's not, you know, so
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. I absolutely agree. My other question actually with the pro leagues, oh, I suppose you don't really know the answer yet, but when you do a pro show, you can let me know. I just wondered, like, I don't know if you've ever been backstage in any of them, but like, is the vibe any different? Because, you know, it's arguably more serious for one, but I just wonder, like, what the backstage essence is.
Well, I think from what I've seen, Philly, it's again, it's like bigger backstage,
Mm,
more serious. You know, I mean, I haven't, like I said, I haven't
no,
been there, so
yeah.
I don't know. But from what I've seen on YouTube or whatever, it is a different vibe. I think
Mm,
people aren't there for fun, are they? They're there to
yeah,
really do well, and I think changes everything. Like if you go
yeah.
backstage at like a PCA show, for example, you've got girls like or giggling and having fun, which I absolutely love. I think it's so good, but I don't think you would have that
No.
in the pro league necessarily.
This is what I was wondering because, oh, it's funny, when I did a show, there's very distinct categories of girls backstage. There was the ones that were up for having a laugh and just being like, yeah, we've made it this far, let's just have fun. And then there was those that were clearly like, we take this seriously. Like they were fully like staring you out. Like it was really mixed.
Exactly.
I can imagine
Funny,
it.
isn't it?
Yeah, well, obviously it gets so much more serious at pro level. I'm just curious what it's like back there, but you'll have to let me know when you can be. Oh, brilliant. Um, so I guess we've covered this one quite a lot in like sort of here and there throughout this anyway, but what are the biggest issues that you see in bodybuilding, both personally and both from a coaching perspective as well?
I've got a list here to go
I
through.
love your list. She's so
So,
prepared.
um, as mentioned before, people competing to hide their eating disorders or body image
Hmm.
issues, doing it for the wrong reasons or doing it for a form of control to like cover it up. I haven't got an eating disorder. I'm prepping, so no one knows this. I'm
Yeah.
getting lean. I'm getting shredded. I'm getting really sick. No one knows this, and that's what I have seen a lot of.
Hmm.
Um, People compete for the wrong reasons, so competing for the clout, competing for Instagram followers, competing for likes. That's not gonna get you through a prep or out of a prep. That's gonna keep you up.
Hmm.
You know, when I started competing, I actually Instagram wasn't a huge thing in 2016.
Mm.
I think you just posted pictures with no captions, um,
Yeah.
and it wasn't really like that big. And I didn't, you know, Instagram wasn't driving me to step on stage. Whereas I think a
Mm.
lot of girls now, that's their driver. It is Instagram, social media for people to tell them how amazing they are. You know, external validation, all that stuff.
Mm.
So I think that's a huge problem. And again, if you want to compete, find your why. You know,
Yeah.
you've
Yeah.
got to find your why. It has to be clear to you. It can't just be about getting lean. You know.
I've had people say to
What
me
else did I say?
before, like, have you ever thought about how you're going to compete again to grow your coaching business? And I'm like, well, no, because as a coach, I think it's quite clear from my Instagram at this point that that's not what I value. So I'd be getting all the wrong people that I want to coach, as in, like, for my personal values of having that balance, having, you know, more body fat potentially, but still being strong. Like, I value all those sorts of things. So for me, if I was to compete, that wouldn't help that, you know?
No, you got to
Mm.
like your vibe is your vibe, as they say, and
Yeah.
who you like, what your values are, you've got to obviously put across the social media, and that's who you attract.
Yeah.
And you can't have a mixed message.
Absolutely not.
So
And that the second part
yeah,
that you said there, sorry, I keep cutting you off here. I'm just gonna say this and then I'll stop talking. The second part you said about knowing your why as well, I cannot emphasize the importance of that. I distinctly remember, I think I've said this in a previous podcast, but there was one time between my qualifier and finals where I was sat on my bed on the phone to my mum about to order a pizza. Like, I'm over it. I don't want to do this anymore. And that's literally why, because I was sat there thinking, I don't know why I'm doing this anymore. I actually didn't want to be at that point. I'd mentally prepared for doing my qualifier and I hadn't thought ahead. Like, I hadn't thought about, making finals and having to continue dieting for another 6 weeks. And by that point, I think I was so burnt out and so over it that I didn't have a why anymore, which makes it impossible to carry on because it's so hard.
Yeah, like when you're so hungry and also you're so fatigued and you've got an hour of Stairmaster to do, and you look at the Stairmaster and you think, oh my God, how am I going to get through this? You don't have to lie crystal clear in your mind. You cannot do it, and you'll bottle out. You'll not adhere to your diet. You'll just want to give up. Whereas the people that know their why, they're just like, go, go, go. Even if I feel shit, I'm go, go, go. Like, unstoppable,
Yeah.
That mindset, just undeniable. So the other point I was going to make was, we touched upon it slightly, is coaches not understanding female health and being reckless. So with stuff like PEDs and like that, they might see potential in someone, which is normal to see, and then they'll be like, oh, okay, let's put her on this, and the girl doesn't understand what she's taking. And that can ruin lives. Coaches, essentially, we're in charge of people's lives and their health and mental well-being. A coach can absolutely turn someone's life around in a second, for bad. So there are so many amazing coaches out there who really understand female health, inside out, probably more than some females sometimes. But there are some coaches out there who just don't, and I just don't think they should be coaching females, if I'm honest. I think it's wrong.
Yeah.
A lot of the time.
Yeah. There's a lot of coaches that I don't think should be coaching, full stop. But here we are.
No, and I said on my story the other day, I said coaching needs to be governed. Like,
I think so.
I'm sat here. I've got my university degree in sports science. I did my PT course, and I'm not saying everyone needs to do that, because I know, like, some coaches, for example, like Josh Bridgman, he doesn't have a PT qualification, I don't think. He went to uni and stuff, but he's obviously an online coach. He's a really good online coach, but he's like invested in education. He's done seminars, and that's all you need to do is actually care. Don't be lazy. Invest your money into learning. Get yourself a coach, a good coach, and you'll then be a really good coach yourself. Anyone can jump into coaching.
This is exactly a conversation I had the other day. Somebody messaged me on Instagram saying, I really want to start online coaching. Do you have any advice for me? Bless him, like, honestly, full respect for him, like, asking the question. And I just said, the main bit of advice I have for you is to invest in your education. Like, that is where so many coaches don't have that. Like, that's what's going to set you apart from everyone else and make you a really, really good coach. And when I say invest in your education, I don't necessarily mean investing in a business coach who's going to teach you how to, like, not there's anything wrong with that, but first and foremost, like, you don't necessarily just need bravado and marketing. Like, I mean, invest in your actual knowledge so that you can coach, not just sell yourself.
Yeah, I agree with that so much, because you'll see a lot of the time as well, girls or guys will compete and then they'll be like, oh, I'm going to become a coach now. And it's like, it doesn't really work like that. Just because you're a good competitor, it does not make you a good coach.
No, couldn't agree more.
So investing in education is so important. You are in charge of people's lives, mental well-being. If you get it wrong, you can mess someone up. Like, if you say to a girl, for example, I don't know, say something that, like, makes her question her relationship with food, that then can ruin her relationship with food, and that can then cause an eating disorder, which then can ruin lives. Do you know what I mean? It's just, you've got to be so careful. Like, you've got to be careful how you talk to people. know how to talk to people, know how to approach certain situations, and that all comes from you being coached yourself as well. And also, I think being a personal trainer and actually working with people on the gym floor really does develop you as a coach, because you work with such an array of people as a PT, don't you?
Yeah.
Like different walks of life, different goals, different ages, and I think you really develop as a coach by actually working on the gym floor as well. So if you can do that, I highly advise you do that.
Yeah, definitely. Having that and having, you know, investing in courses and education, get something under your belt rather than just be, as you say, like none of it's governed. You can become an online coach without even getting a PT qualification. You can literally have nothing and just, you know, present yourself on social media with a lot of bravado, and there you go, you're off. It's terrifying.
It is so scary. So yeah, I think that's kind of my the issues that I see in the sport. Yeah, and I think just people's mental health being really unstable within the competing world. You know, there's something I'm really hot on is mental health. I've got my, you know, I've had my therapist. I'm actually James Elliott, who is my therapist, is actually coming into my coaching as a psychotherapist. I'm adding him into what my coach, you know, into my brand. So he's working with me and my clients, and so that's going to really change the game, because I want people, because obviously as a coach, like I know a lot about like mental health, but I'm not actually allowed to cure someone or like give them professional help, because I'm not that's not my expertise. You know, I haven't got, you know, I'm not a psychotherapist or anything like that, so I can't do that, and I'll be doing them a disservice. So I like to, if I think someone's got a bad relationship with food, I'll say, right, I'll support you, but here, let's, you know, get in contact with this person to actually help you properly, like professional help. So that's why I brought into my coaching, because I want to have, you know, I want my clients to get incredible results, but for them to be absolutely perfect up here as well. Obviously, there's no such thing as perfect, but, you know, in a really good mental state. And that's important for competitors as well.
So important for competitors. Yeah. Amazing. So cool. So that actually brings me on to the next question. Like, if you were to define like what your mission is when it comes to coaching, I know we've covered the concept throughout this podcast, but what would you say your main mission is?
Again, I wrote this down just so I didn't get it right. I don't forget it. I think my big mission is to empower girls and just create a tribe of strong, powerful girls, like wellness kind of girls who want to compete, who are successful, but also strong in their minds, with amazing relationships with their own bodies. You know, to just have that whole, like, encompass that whole thing, like be healthy but compete, and then post show to then be fine with putting on body fat and just being in a really good mental state. Because, as you know, as I've spoken about before, there's so many girls who can't love themselves being a healthy body weight. They have to be lean all the time, and I want to show girls that it can be done in a healthy way, and you don't have to hate your body, and you can have an amazing relationship with food, and you can have balance. You can go on holiday, you can go to festivals if you want to. Like, I'm sat here as a pro now, I do all of those things, and that's never going to change. You know, and I still get results, I still do well, because, you know, I'm authentically myself. So that's kind of how I like to live my life.
I love that message. I really do love that message. I see a lot of people in the bodybuilding world, and it's no disrespect to them at all, but it's really easy, I think, to get caught up in the bodybuilding world, and like you forget about everything else that you can do in your life. It's like that's your main focus, and I appreciate that you have to be focused, but at the same time you can miss out on so much, and I love the fact that you're doing that as well.
Yeah, because, you know, the two things I focus on a few things: rest and recovery and sleep, obviously, you know, making sure I'm not overtraining, getting good quality foods in, you know, fueling my body correctly, and also training hard. If you train hard, you're going to get amazing results. Like, I think a lot of people don't actually love training. And again, if you love training, you know, you're going to get such better results, because, you know, and also, you know, you can focus on that. That can be your new focus when you're pushing your body weight up and stuff.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think you need to, I don't think you have to be a robot to get results. And I know a lot of competitors, if they listen to this, will be like, you're wrong. But I don't personally. I think you can live a balanced life and still get results. I've proven that by getting my pro card. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
Obviously there's probably going to have to be times when I have to rein a few things in. Like, obviously in my prep, I go into robot mode, but it's just how I like to be as an athlete and a person. I'm really happy like this. If I had to live a robotic life, if I had to follow a meal plan every day and had to live a robotic life and couldn't go and do things that I enjoy, then I wouldn't want to do this sport.
Yeah.
I would say, do you know what? I'm actually out, not happy. Like, why would I want to be unhappy? And I can seriously say, if bodybuilding was taken away from me tomorrow, which I would hope it's not, but if it was, I would be okay. I would be fine because I've got other things going on in my life. I've got other focuses, you know. So again, my identity is not bodybuilding. I love bodybuilding, but I'm not bodybuilding. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. Yeah. Awesome. So last question for you. What's next for you? When's the pro show?
So I've just had my boobies done. So I'm actually currently off training for probably like another 3 weeks from me now. So I'm gonna assess at the end of the year how much I've grown, how many improvements I've made, and then potentially start my prep probably May, June next year to do later shows. But I'm gonna see. Like, I don't do this as I don't like rushing things. I see it as a marathon, not sprint. And I'll go on stage when I'm ready, and it's fine if I'm not ready next year. Cool. I'll just focus on business again, just focus on growing. So I think well, I know Callum wants me to compete next year. I know he does, but kind of not his decision, it's my decision, and I will know by the end of the year if I feel like I want to do it again. Not do it again, but step on stage next year, because it's a big jump, huge commitment, very expensive, traveling everywhere. And I got to feel ready. I don't want to go on stage and people just go, "Oh God, she shouldn't be on stage." I want to go and be a contender. I'm not saying I'll be top 3 or top 5, whatever, but I don't want to be like last call outs and coming last. I just don't want that. I want to be like, wow, she's made improvements. Look at Chloe. You know what I mean? So
absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I wish you the best of luck. I'll be following along on your Instagram, making sure you're doing what you're doing.
Thanks so much, really. But
awesome.
Thank you for having me on today.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for coming. We'll have to get another episode in, maybe when you're like deep in prep, and we can we can talk about how you're getting on.
Yeah, definitely. And if anyone listening to this has any questions about bodybuilding or whatever, go onto my Instagram. I'm just going to confirm my name because
I was going to say I'll link it below in the caption. So it'll be there for you.
So I'm just messaging whatever, and I'll get back to you with my tips or answers.
Cool. Awesome. Brilliant. Right. Well, thanks for listening to the podcast, guys. As I say, I will link everything below so you'll have all the details. And Chloe, I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you so much, Billy. I'll speak to you soon.
Bye.